right, welcome back to KFYR Plus. And the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge last week is a multi-layered tragedy for family and friends of those workers that were killed and for businesses that rely on that very important port. It's an economic loss. Joining me now is Dunham Biles, a legal expert with experience in litigating complex matters. Welcome, Mr. Biles. How are you today?
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk. As I mentioned at the outset, this tragedy deals with a lot of different factors. You have the workers who perished. You've got a damaged bridge, a ship that needs repairing. What are the legal claims here, and who could be held liable in this?
So currently, as you may be aware, I think it was on February 1st, the owners of the ship filed a lawsuit attempting to exonerate themselves or limit their liability. That results from a statute back in about 1851, a Limitation of Liability Act, where they may in fact be successful at limiting their liability to about 47 million if they were to prevail.
That is amazing. What factors will be considered in determining the liability in this case? Is it just that that law itself?
No, that's the beginning of the issues. There will certainly be others who get sued as well. But as far as that statute goes, the real issue is whether or not the owners are free of any negligence or fault. And we just don't know enough facts right now to know what happened and why it happened. We know that there's apparently a loss of power, but why did that happen? Did the owners know at some point in advance of the possibility of this happening? Like most litigation, this will take a long time for the parties to sort out and the courts to sort out. But in the meantime, you've seen some reporting that perhaps the employer of the workers might not have been complying with certain safety regulations, etc. So you can imagine that there may be claims made against the employer. If it turns out there's a parts issue with the ship, you could manage claims against the manufacturer. Other sorts of avenues. We lawyers find ways to bring claims. That's part of what we do.
Well, I did see today that the EPA is getting involved as well, because there could be some EPA, issues that could cause also more damages. A recent report, Mr. Biles, predicted that this could become the most expensive marine insured loss in history. So what type of insurance policies are typically involved in a case like this, and how will they determine the compensation?
Well, the issue on the insurance, first off, will be what the liability of the ship owner um, is. Obviously, the insurers aren't going to cover things that you don't hold the owners liable for. So we'll have to get through that. But the first and most likely collection points with insurance will be for those businesses that had the appropriate business interruption types of insurance, so that they can begin to recover on those policies. That will inevitably be some bit of a fight on some of them, because we've seen this before with other situations. Not always is it the case that the business owner has acquired the insurance that they need for the particular circumstance. So
Sure.
and then we also see that the federal government has begun chipping in some money. I believe I read recently that they're making some small business loans or other business loans available to those with business interruption claims, and they've said that they're going to pay for the reconstruction of the bridge.
So I can understand having to pay back for the bridge, but again, you said that the shipper itself, limited liability of $47 million. What about the port with thousands of men, those long guys, longshoremen that are working there, losing wages? You're losing productivity there. Would they be able to recoup some type of loss?
Most likely not, is the answer to that. And just to be clear, I said that, just to be clear, the owners have asked for a cap
Yeah.
on
Yep.
there. It's not. It's by no means, this type of lawsuit is almost automatic in this sort of situation. It by no means means that they're going to prevail on that, as there seems to be some issue about prior problems, which leads to the suggestion that perhaps they did have some fault, some knowledge, and thus there may be no cap at all.
Okay. Are there any potential challenges or obstacles that may arise when filing claims for damages to public infrastructure?
On the public infrastructure, well, you mean by the state or city itself filing a claim?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no. So obviously, you're going to land up with the same problems on liability issues on the limitations, but other than that, that's obviously a direct damage uh, to the bridge. So that
Hmm.
shouldn't be an issue in that regard, other than if there is a cap on the liability. And then, of course, you always have collection problems. We often forget. Uh, we don't know yet how much insurance was involved, etc.
Yeah, right. How does the concept of negligence come into play when determining the liability? Could multiple entities now share in this responsibility? The ship's owner itself? Could the engineers of the bridge be liable because maybe the bridge wasn't up to code?
That is one of the issues that I had considered. Is there an issue there with the bridge? What happened? I don't think we know the facts to be able to suggest that there was anything wrong with the bridge, but it's possible. But then, to the extent that you have a publicly owned bridge, right, and managed, then you run into sovereign immunity problems. You don't often aren't allowed to sue the state, the city, the federal government for damages because they may have, in fact, their own sovereign immunity issues. So those could be issues as well.
Okay. And can you explain the process of filing a lawsuit in cases like this and what factors are considered in determining a compensation, let's say for the workers themselves and their families?
Yeah, for the workers themselves, there can be an issue uh, under the statute that if they're going to sue the ship owner, there is a formula for calculating damages for them in the event that there isn't sufficient funds to pay all of their damages. Because this is the problem: if we land up with a cap of 42 million dollars, then we clearly don't have enough money to pay for all the claims. So we have a destroyed bridge, for goodness sake. So there is a process for figuring out how much each claimant would recover in that scenario. But the filing of this lawsuit in federal court by the ship owners, to the extent you're going after a ship owner, you're going to land up having to file claims in that court uh, as you got. But there are other ways to do this. Probably you're going to see claims against the employer as well.
Okay, so if I get this straight, Mr. Biles, that let's say that they somehow end up getting that cap on 47 million or whatever that number is. Of course, the bridge is going to be millions upon maybe even $1 billion to rebuild, so that money's already gone. The families of the workers that were lost, would they in turn sue the owner of the ship? But he's already got the limited liability if he's got that judgment. Would the workers then, their families, sue the U.S. government, or how would that work?
No, they will not be suing the U.S. government. But the way this works is much like if you're familiar with bankruptcy, when
Hmm.
this is a situation where you have too many claims and too few funds to go around. It means that it gets distributed out often on a pro rata basis. So you would get each claimant would land up with a percentage of what they were entitled to, so that everyone gets paid, but not all of their damages. And in the case of the wrongful death, I believe the statute provides a method that guarantees them. It's a formula of 400 and something dollars per ton that's ship weight, etc. So that there is some, they won't go below a certain limit in order to make sure they are compensated.
Mr. Biles, this is going to be played out in the long run. Just with your best educated guess, how do you see this coming about in the next, I guess, year, 2 years down the road?
Yeah, no, I think it's probably 2 years down the road, most likely. Where they're still trying to recover ship, hopefully um, lives that were lost,
Hmm.
etc. And it's going to be a long investigative process. As you mentioned already, the EPA seems to be involved. Others are involved. There are going to be lots of parties, including insurance companies, plaintiffs, etc., doing their investigations. And I don't know how long it will take for them to figure out exactly what went wrong. But usually, that's not the fastest process. And all avenues on this will certainly be explored to find not only what happened and why it happened, so we can hopefully avoid this in the future, but also to get people compensated and potentially find others that may share in the fault.
Mr. Biles, thank you for your expertise. I appreciate your time this afternoon. Learned a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Have a great weekend, all right?
You as well.
All right.